The G-Lynx helicopter is a premium option in War Thunder's British tech tree. Let's see what it can do. In the mid-1960s, the British started a project to develop a new helicopter to fill a variety of utility roles and replace several first-generation helicopters that were still being flown. Initially, the French were going to participate in the project as well, but they ended up withdrawing in favor of pursuing some domestic options. The Lynx first flew in 1971, and even the early prototypes showed amazing performance potential and broke the helicopter world speed record in 1972. With the great performance of the helicopter, the British were enthusiastic, to say the least, and envisioned a wide variety of roles and versions for the new vehicle, and wanted to use it for everything from anti-tank warfare to battlefield recon and civilian transport duties. The helicopter was eventually built in dozens of versions and operated by about 20 countries, with a dozen or so still flying it to this day. Now, the helicopter we're looking at here is the G-Lynx, which was the civilian tail number call sign given to the manufacturer's designated technology demonstrator airframe. This particular helicopter was a one-off model which was rebuilt a few times in order to test out new systems, new engines, and so on. The vehicle implemented in War Thunder seems to be an odd mix of systems and capabilities from different combat versions of the Lynx helicopter, which isn't really too much of a stretch since this is supposed to be the tech demonstrator prototype. As a fun bit of trivia, the G-Lynx demonstrator airframe set an absolute world speed record for single-rotor helicopters in 1986 after reaching slightly over 400 kilometers an hour in level flight, which is a speed record that still stands today in 2022. In War Thunder, this is a premium vehicle in Rank 6 at Battle Rating 10.0. A lot of folks underestimate the G-Lynx because it doesn't look like a dedicated attack helicopter. They just assume that, compromises were made and everything. But there's a lot more going on under the hood with this one. The G-Lynx gets an advanced sensor suite, including a radar warning receiver, night vision, thermal sights with a 20x zoom, sensor point of interest, and moving target tracking. It carries a supply of chaff and flares, but it doesn't have any IR mitigation systems built in. The helicopter gets 7 loadouts with a variety of different options for unguided rockets, a gun pod, and guided missiles. As a premium vehicle, all of the loadouts are available right from the start. The air-to-air missile carried is the AIM-92 Stinger, which is an all-aspect infrared weapon, but it only maneuvers at 10 Gs, which makes it almost incapable of engaging fixed-wing aircraft in ground battles, because you're never going to get a chance to fire this in like a tail-chase engagement like you would shooting it from a fighter jet. The first air-to-ground missile is the BGM-71 TOW missile. This is a wire-guided weapon that is immune to jamming and countermeasures, which gets classified as a semi-active command line-of-sight weapon in War Thunder. The BGM-71 has insane armor penetration and a respectable explosive warhead. If you can get direct hits with this, it's not difficult to get kills, but the effective range is only a little over 3 kilometers. Remember, it's wire-guided. The second missile is the AGM-114B Hellfire missile. This thing is a monster. It has over 1,000 millimeters of penetration on a direct no-angle hit, over 2 kilograms of explosive mass, great range, and it's laser-guided. You can't ask for much more than that. Being a laser-guided weapon, this missile is also resistant to countermeasures, and overall, that makes it even more effective. The flight performance of the G-Lynx is pretty basic, with one caveat. It's crazy fast. Even with a full weapons load, this thing can push past 300 kilometers an hour in level flight without any trouble at all. And it's currently the fastest helicopter in the game, both on paper and in actual flight, which makes sense because in real life, the G-Lynx still holds the world speed record. It has great collective response for a single rotor design, and a very effective tail rotor that spins it around on the yaw axis pretty quickly. Beyond that, the performance is pretty typical of a medium helicopter. Relatively average maneuverability and cyclic response. No real problems there, and nothing really stands out as a notable element of performance other than the speed and the tail rotor. Flying the G-Lynx out into missions depends more on your spawn points than anything else. That is, assuming you're flying close air support and ground battles. You can take this out into helicopter sim battles, but that mode is still just a slag heap of KA-50 spawn camping, and I only got a more traditional out of it, maybe 1 in 10 tries. In close air support, though, your playstyle is going to depend on how many spawn points you have, and thus what weapon loadout you can take. If you fly out at the start of a match, you're bringing unguided rockets, and that's pretty much it. The good news is, if you can do that, the helicopter is fast enough to make a credible push to cap an objective point or support your team during the initial push. But just know that the unguided rockets and guns aren't especially strong against ground targets. If you farm up some spawn points, you can fly out with the guided missiles. In practice, you're usually going to want the Hellfires if you can get them, but the tow missiles aren't bad either. At BR-10, you're at a level where credible modern anti-air units that are 30 years newer than your helicopter can be in the field, but you can still be tiered into matches where you'll get to fly in close and do attack runs over the battlefield. Generally, though, if you've got the spawn points, you're going to be doing standoff missile attacks from longer ranges. The normal tactics apply. Weaving in and out of cover will be safer, but hovering at higher altitudes will give you better line of sight on more targets, though obviously you'll be significantly more vulnerable to anti-aircraft weapons. So, pick your poison. Visually, the G-Lynx helicopter, well, it looks like a civilian utility helicopter with some weapons strapped down the side, much like the basic Hueys in War Thunder. It isn't a bad-looking vehicle, it's just really simple. Now, landing the G-Lynx is very easy. It has landing skids rather than wheels, so it tends to stick pretty well on touchdown, and it's resistant to flipping over sideways. If you land with hover mode, it's brain-dead simple, but even combat landings under fire in normal flight are easier than some other helicopters thanks to the landing skids. To close out on the G-Lynx helicopter, this thing is crazy fast. It has potent standoff missiles with good lethality, solid optics with thermal sights, and it gets premium bonuses. However, it's basically unarmored, its gun is close to useless against ground targets, and it's a pretty expensive vehicle to get into. The final verdict on the G-Lynx helicopter is that this heli is at a BR where you can still get away with more than one playstyle, and it performed better than I expected it to, and had some good flexibility. It isn't as powerful as some of the other premium helicopters, but it's lower BR than most of them, and it's still okay. As always, thanks for watching.